Welcome to the first and long time coming episode of 1AA Parlays here on the FCS Fans Nation. I'm your host on this one, Colby Peterson, and back with us as always, the one, the only, Montana Parlay. Parlay, how you been, man?
I'm all right. Keeping busy. It's been a long fall, so obviously
Yeah.
we didn't come at you in the regular season. So here we are at the playoffs. It's when things really matter. It's when the lines tighten up, when they're released early, and so we figured we might as well come back and grace you all with our presence.
Yeah, like Parlay said, during the season can be a little bit difficult at times to get lines, but because there are a limited number of games this weekend, the lines came out early, and we thought, yeah, this would be great. Talk some betting lines with the folks, and let Parlay bless you with his knowledge. So Parlay, before we get into that, man, wanted to maybe talk a little bit about Cat-Griz because obviously that was the biggest game of the season in the Big Sky. You had vested interest in it, of course, but it also went your way. Talk to me a little bit about how that game went because I was busy elsewhere that day.
Yeah, so I'll talk mostly about the betting lines. I figured that it should have been a 4.5 point spread. I said I was going to stay away. A lot of models were showing 6 points or more. I didn't, you throw things like that out the window in Missoula. And lo and behold, Sportsbet Montana posted 2.5, which I thought they might. And FanDuel actually opened up the Bobcats at plus 1.5, and then quickly moved them to minus 1.5.
Yeah, I would have taken
So,
plus 1.5 like that.
oh yeah, so I kind of missed it. Like I didn't quite notice it. So I immediately parlayed Montana State in the under because I liked under 59.5 and saved by the hook on that one. But I started betting on it heavy. It's all relative, but I bet the money line at minus 115. I bet Cats minus 2.5 a couple times. And then on game day, it did move up to 4.5. And even in Montana, it moved up to 6.5 because like
Wow.
92% of money was on the Bobcat side, according to Sportsbet Montana. So I actually came back. I found a little promo on one of my legal casinos here, and I bet the Grizz plus 4.5. So the final score was, I did not like seeing the Grizz score that last touchdown for as a Bobcat fan
Yeah.
because it was too close for comfort. Thank goodness Lamson is just a stud, really proved himself in that game. But from a gambling perspective, that was the perfect score. I mean, I won every single bet on Saturday, but at the end of the day, what the most important thing is the Bobcats won. They got the 2 seed. They get home field throughout. And it was a great game. Hank, tip your cap to the Grizz. A lot of people, Cat fans and analytic types, thought it wasn't going to be as close as it was. And you know what? They proved that, besides, in spite of all their close games against inferior opponents, they can hang with the best teams. And they did. And a couple things could have gone either way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the difficult things about games like this is that, the computers can say one thing and everything on paper says one thing, but when you add the atmosphere, you add the history, you add the rivalry, a lot of that stuff goes out the window and it's mano y mano on game day. You can look at lots of things, but some of that just doesn't matter when these two teams get together.
Exactly. And a lot of has been said leading up that, there hadn't been a competitive road game, or competitive game at all. The road team didn't have a chance since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that this year was going to be different. Okay, there just was no way the Bobcats were going to get blown out, and I didn't think, in spite of all the metrics and some of the slip ups by the Grizz against, again, inferior opponents, I was quite certain the Grizz weren't going to lose by more than 10. So, the game was exactly what fans wanted. I don't know, if probably wasn't what Grizz fans wanted, but FCS football fans had to come away from that game thinking that's some damn good football.
Yeah, overall, if you're a Big Sky fan and you took the time, and even if you're not, you took the time to watch the game, I'm sure you weren't disappointed. Like you said, it ended up being close. It was not a blowout either way, and it was entertaining. So for those of us who didn't necessarily have a vested interest, but were just curious, you were rewarded. So Parlay, let's talk, man. Let's give you a minute to get up on the pulpit and preach. What does Parlay want to talk about today in this first of the playoff series of 1AA parlays?
Well, I would like to start like I do every year with this whole regionalization thing. But you know what? I've done that every year. I think it's kind of silly that Montana State gets possibly the best road opponent with one of the best, if not the best QBs. But you know what? We're going to be favored by 16.5 if Youngstown knocks off Yale, and that's not a guarantee either. So it is what it is. Montana, if they face Chase Mason, that's a tough pull. That is a tough pull. But what I'd like to preach about here is the seeding, the 1 through 8, and then those who didn't get 1 through 8. UC Davis, what? I don't understand that. Like if it's like a parting gift as they're ramping up to get into the FBS. There were years in the past 5 years, I've been one of their biggest proponents where they got screwed in the playoffs, either with the seeding in general or not even making it. This year, they did not deserve a seed. They didn't. They didn't beat a playoff team. Okay. They didn't have to play Montana. They, just did not have they did not have a resume worthy of an 8 seed. And now the problem is that a lot of the Valley teams beat themselves up. So on paper, the 8-4s look bad. But a lot of those 8-4 records were better than Davis. The team I feel that got the short end of the stick, especially if you follow the FCS Nation poll, who has them at 4, is Tennessee Tech. Yeah. I don't know enough about that conference, that division, whatever, but they did what they had to do. They won every game they could win, except for the SEC matchup at Kentucky. Now, maybe their opponents are super weak. That could be true. All right. But they beat a lot of them handily. And what is the weirdest thing to me is we had those 2 mid-season playoff bracket committee reveals. Tennessee Tech was in the top 8 both times. Correct me if I'm wrong. How do they get dropped because they lost to Kentucky? And how do certain teams like Davis surpass them? It was weird enough when Lehigh got dropped behind Tarleton when, the last committee ranking had them ahead of them. I don't understand that. It makes perfect sense that Montana stayed at the 3, right? The playoff, that's where the playoff committee rankings were a godsend to Grizz fans, because if you're looking at the coaches poll, if your 2 loses the 3, 2 could be punished and be dropped to 4 or 5. But because the Grizz were 3 in the committee's eyes and the Cats were 2 and they only lost by 3, that's what the 3 seed's supposed to do. So they weren't punished. And that was the right thing to do, to put the Grizz at 3. But to switch teams like Lehigh and Tarleton, maybe Tarleton is better, but why not have Tarleton ahead of them the whole time? What changed in the last 3 weeks? Why drop Tennessee Tech? Are you punishing them for losing to Kentucky? All right, that's it. We can move on.
I thought it was good, man. I thought it was good. And I think it's fair because you're right that maybe conference has something to do with that. The OVC had to combine with the Big South in order to keep that auto bid going, right? That matters. But I think that if you're on the committee, you probably favor the Big Sky more in terms of your strength of schedule. But yeah, I mean, it is unfair, I think, to to TTU because they played everybody that they had to as tough as they could, aside, like you said, from the matchup against Kentucky, which is a money game. But they did everything that they could, and like you said, and won handily in a lot of those cases, and were punished. And Davis was given a spot when Davis didn't beat a playoff team. In fact, they had some head scratching losses that probably shouldn't have been there that might have hurt them. But I think that there's maybe a little bit of a recency bias there too, because they beat Sac the final game of the season, and for some reason Sac has this like weird cachet when they shouldn't. Sac lost to Cal Poly, man. Like, that's who they are. And so while they may have beat up on the teams that they should have, Sac never really beat anybody that they should not have. You know, they were a very middle of the road Big Sky team, and Davis had to do some late heroics to come back from that in order to make it happen. So I think you're right. I agree with you. TTU should probably be the 8 seed there, and they're not. Davis is going to get the week off, while TTU has to play in the first round. But I also think that there's a lot to like right now in Cookeville, because this is the first year of their head coach, Kiko Vesperas, who transferred from Eastern Washington, ended up being the starting quarterback from them. He had a lot of great moments this season, really kind of led them. And so they are trending in a direction that is good, that maybe folks in Cookeville haven't seen in a long time. So they probably like what they see. Yes, they got screwed. Davis got the other side of it for once in life. But at the end of the day, if TTU is who we think they are, they will take care of business this weekend, and they'll move on to the second round, which I hope they do.
It'll be an interesting matchup. It's no slouch in North Dakota who they have to play.
No. North Dakota is a good team, right? And they got a tough matchup. And that game is it in Grand Forks? Let me check our list here really quickly.
No, it's at Texas, or at Tennessee Tech.
Okay, so they'll be in Cookeville for this game, which, by the way, if you're out there, make sure you go to Ralph's Donuts. Just telling you folks, as a person who has passed through Cookeville a couple of times. But yeah, it will be a tough game. Even though UND is on the road, like, they are a tough team. They are a Valley team that definitely deserved to be in the playoffs, and so it will be a tall order. But if TTU can pull it off, it will vindicate us in some ways, because it will show that, yes, they did, in fact, deserve that 8 seed. But if they get blown out, well, I guess then we all look dumb. All right, Parlay, let's talk about these lines, man, because it's been a while since we've got to talk lines, and these ones are some good ones. So, like you said, there are a number of really good ones. Let's start off at the top, though. Let's start off with that game that you mentioned earlier with Yale at Youngstown State. Right now, Youngstown State is getting minus 3.5 in that one. The over-under set at 59.5. How are you feeling about this one? Because the Ivies, it's so tough to me, because this will be the first year that the Ivies play in the playoffs. So we're going to kind of find out who they really are.
Yeah, and first of all, this is the first year that I can remember where there's no spreads over 20.
Yeah,
so should be a competitive, relatively speaking, at least compared to other years, first round. Yeah, that's a good question about the Ivies. I think Massey and Sagarin overrate the Ivies a little bit, although we won't know for sure until Saturday. But this is where, it's 3.5. I guess I play guess the lines with my brother on Sunday or Monday before the lines are posted. We both guessed that Youngstown would be favored by 13.5. So that's 10 points of value for us. But, it's hard to know how good Yale is. I think I definitely lean, maybe more than lean, towards Youngstown State.
Right. I mean, everything tells me that Youngstown State should be, this is a Valley team. They should be tough. They're playing at home. They have a pedigree, right? They have a tradition there. And so do I believe that Yale is going to be able to come in and do what they do, which, going through some of the numbers, I think that they're one of the better passing teams in the country. But yeah, if you guys sort of had felt that it was going to be more like 13.5 as opposed to 3.5, like, I'm sort of leaning toward taking Youngstown State at 3.5, because I'm, like I said, not necessarily a huge believer in what they what they have going for them. So for me, I'm taking that 3.5, man, because I'm going to lean toward the Valley and then just kind of see what it gives me. But Parlay, how do you see it? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm taking Youngstown. I haven't decided if I'm going to bet the spread, but there might be another bet in that game we'll talk about when we get to the picks segment.
Okay. So, okay. And then how do you feel about that over under 59.5?
Well, that's what I'm alluding to there. I just think that is too low.
Too low.
Too low.
So smash that over, folks. Okay. Next up on our list, Central Connecticut State at Rhode Island. Rhode Island getting minus 17.5 on this one.
Yeah, is this a rematch from last year? Was this a Rhodey got upset last year? Was it Central Connecticut State or Connecticut? Whatever the hell. Was that who they played last year? Is this a revenge matchup? Let's see here.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, guys. I don't watch the CAA very much at all because of the Flow Sports thing, and so
yeah, that makes it tough.
It just like when we start talking CAA, my brain falls out because I've got more than enough to watch on ESPN Plus. I don't spend extra money to watch the CAA. But if you're a person who is covering the whole subdivision, like a lot of folks do, it makes sense why you would catch them. But for me, I don't know if it's a rematch, Parlay. I don't remember particularly.
Okay. So yeah. Now it's showing Rhode Island beat Central Connecticut 21-17. I think they were losing, and it was a lot closer than it should have been.
So
anyway,
back win there.
It's a 17.5-point spread. This is tough for me. I guessed 11.5. Massey says 18. Central Connecticut's not good. Rhodey, meh. Like you said, who watches Flow Sports? So I think I'll take the points just from a lack of knowledge, and think Central Connecticut can keep it within 3 scores. That they make it a 14-point ball game.
Yeah, part of me wants to believe that Rhode Island is this good. They've been ranked all season. They've gotten a lot of pub. They've had some missteps, though. But I'm kind of with you. I feel like maybe because this has been a close matchup in the past, that I want to take Central Connecticut State plus 17.5 because, like you said, that's one of the large. I think is that our largest spread for that. It's not the largest, but it's one of the largest. Yeah, for this weekend. And so I kind of like the points. I think I'm taking Central Connecticut State as well. I think that, they might be able to cover unless I'm totally wrong. Rhodey comes out. They're at home, completely blow them out, and then, hey, we lose. But it's a big spread, and usually when we get to this point in the season, teams are good. They're pretty good. We don't see a ton of blowouts in the first round unless, there are teams that shouldn't be there, or you have whoever's playing the Pioneer champion. That's usually a game that kind of gets out of hand pretty quickly. But yeah, I think I'm going to take the points as well. I think that it won't be that big. I think it'll be closer than that. Next up, we have Illinois State at SLU. So, minus 3.5 for SLU on this, but Illinois State has been there. They've been in the teens, roughly, for a good chunk of the season, ranked Valley team. How do you feel about this one, Parlay?
I mean, Illinois State is coming off just a drubbing at home versus Southern Illinois, who was already out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Illinois State was looking ahead because they had an outside shot of getting a top 8 seed if they would have won that last game.
Yeah, if they win that, that's probably a pretty strong case to be made there, right?
They definitely get it because their only losses, FCS losses, would have been North Dakota State and Youngstown, 2 quality playoff teams, and they would have had wins over playoff South Dakota and playoff South Dakota State. So definitely, if they would have beat Southern Illinois at home, they would have been an 8 seed.
Yeah, and then if they had beat Southern Illinois, that would have been another ranked win on their resume because they were ranked at 24. So yeah, you're probably
And
right.
the other loss is Oklahoma in the opener, and Oklahoma's ranked in the FBS, so that doesn't hurt them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I feel like relative recent history, Illinois State has not done as well in the playoffs. I'm trying to think. They've kind of been underwhelming. I don't know why. Part of it is they don't even get their home field because the high school tournament,
Mm.
even when they earn it, they don't get it. They got to go down to Louisiana, and man, a 3.5. I know nothing. I still like calling them CLA. What's SLA? SLU. It's southeastern Louisiana. Like
Yeah.
CLA makes 10 times more sense. I know they hate it when you say that, but I don't know who rebranded them as SLU. Anyway, that's beside the point. This was one of the hardest ones for me to pick. What the hell? I'll go with CLA. The team formerly known as CLA covers the 3.5.
Okay. I think I'm going to go the opposite way. I think I'm going to go with Illinois State here because Sela has not had a lot of playoff success recently. They always seem to lose in the first round. It doesn't ever seem to work out very well for them. And I have no reason to believe that that'll be different. Like you talked about, there are some quality wins on Illinois State's resume. And so I'll take ISU plus 3.5 and just roll the dice and see what happens.
First time we're different.
Next up, another interesting matchup. We're going to have Harvard at Villanova. So, Harvard at Villanova parlay. How do we feel about this one?
So this is another one where I think the Ivy's overrated. And I guess that Nova would be favored by 6.5. Again, CAA, hard to know.
Yeah.
But, it's actually Harvard who's favored at Nova. I like Nova. I think they're going to win outright. Harvard has not impressed. I've actually gotten to watch Harvard a little bit the last 2 weeks against actually I bet Yale heavy last week because I just didn't. I watched Harvard against Princeton or whoever they played the week before. They did not impress me.
Yeah, it was a close game against Penn.
Penn, that's right. I'm definitely going with Nova. I think they're going to win outright. But who knows? Maybe these Ivy teams will surprise us.
Yeah, because like you said, massive rivalry game, one of the oldest rivalry games in the country last weekend, and Harvard comes up short. The game was on the road for them. It was in Connecticut, so you can choose, to decide what that means in a hostile environment because their fans are going to get up, they're going to show up for that game. But I don't know, man. I've just been not a fan of the CAA of late. They've had a lot of their good teams have kind of left and gone. FBS, Delaware, James Madison, obviously. And so I don't know what the CAA is anymore. And Nova has been kind of one of those mainstays for them. They've been there and they've consistently made the playoffs. But I think I want to roll the dice on this one. And I think I want to take Harvard to win by more than 2.5 because I kind of believe that Harvard can do it. They're a team that's like that. They throw the ball really well. They're number 5 in all of FCS in passing yards. So yeah, man, we'll see what happens through the air. But if they can throw the ball around the yard, they're probably gonna do well. Next up, we've got the Pioneer League champion Drake at South Dakota.
Yeah, and this is always like the draw that everyone wants is the Pioneer League champion. And anytime the spread is less than 20 and you're playing a Valley team or a Big Sky team, you got to take the Valley team or the Big Sky team. 18.5 seems a little low. South Dakota beat them by 21 earlier this year. And South Dakota, I believe, has improved over the last few weeks. I know they did have a running back injury, but they've just come out. They've been solid. They had that huge win at Southern Illinois when both teams were fighting for their playoff lives. I believe that went to 5 overtimes. I was watching it from the end of the fourth quarter onward. That was a hell of a game. And, they've been there, done that, made it to the semifinals last year. They got Bauman, a top QB in the FCS. And, they've got a dome. And even with Thanksgiving week, they can probably pump a little noise in there. So I'm definitely taking South Dakota to cover the 18.5.
Yeah, like you said, quality wins against Southern Illinois. You've got a win against South Dakota State. You've also beat UND. So the Yotes are looking pretty good. And Drake is a Pioneer League team, so there's always going to be that gap because of the scholarship thing. I'm with you. I think I'll take the Yotes to cover because it's at home. They've got a lot of quality wins on the resume. It leads me to believe that they can win by more than 3 scores. All right, next up, we're gonna kind of stay in the Valley a little bit, and we're gonna talk about New Hampshire at South Dakota State. South Dakota State has been a really weird. They've been a weird thing of late, and I don't know what to make of it. Oh, we'll come back. So New Hampshire at South Dakota State, there have been ups and downs, and I think you've already sort of mentioned it. It really depends on which quarterback is going to play in this one, because if it's the one that we hope it is, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it definitely does, but it's just so hard to know. If this line would have posted at 13.5 or 14.5 or higher, I definitely am just going to go with the unknown of New Hampshire, just because that's a lot to cover against a quality team when your team is fighting so many injuries. South Dakota State showed just a lot of grit by going into Grand Forks and winning. Their season was on the line. They've been on a 4-game slide, and they pulled one out. So that shows a lot of toughness, but they have not played well at home. And I know I'm a big Jacks fan.
You've been there. You've been to games there.
Go to games. It's a great atmosphere, but they know I like to troll their fans a little bit because they don't really show up for playoff games. They just don't. You watch.
It's cold, man. They don't play in a dome. It's cold.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. They've got such a good team. They've got such a good stadium, and they don't show up. And, there's a lot of excuses for it, but, it's so hard as it is to get fans for the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And if you've got a fan base that notoriously doesn't show up for playoff games, UNH could come in there. Again, this is another team we're not watching on the streaming bat wars, whatever. But I think that South Dakota State wins, but it's like too close for comfort. So I'm leaning New Hampshire to cover.
Me too. 10.5 is a lot. I didn't watch any New Hampshire this season, but because of the up and down nature that the Jacks have kind of had throughout the year, man, I really got to think that UNH covers 10.5. Got some questions here. Should the Jacks win and they would move on to play in Missoula the following week, how do you think they would fare there?
If Mason's back, they've got a chance. I just don't know if they have the depth because it's not just the quarterback. They've lost so many other players, and they didn't have much depth to begin with because Jimmy just took everyone with him on the way to Wazoo. So I don't know. They what's funny is Massey still has them as the third best team. Not UM, NDSU, MSU, SDSU, then Montana, which is funny. Massey says that SDSU should be favored by 20 against UNH and would be favored against the Grizz in Missoula. But I do not agree with that. A lot of those models don't adjust for injuries well enough.
Yeah.
And again, they could blow out UNH. Again, we're kind of flying blind here. I do not know how good New Hampshire is. And when they're not playing, the top two conferences in non-conference play, we really have no idea how good they are.
Yeah, because like you said, they're probably those models are valuing that win over Montana State earlier in the season,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, it's like they're
And
probably valuing that a lot, but that was
at Youngstown.
yeah, like that was a long time ago though in terms of football, and so it's not quite the same thing as if they had beat them at the beginning of November or something, where you say, wow, that's something then. So looking at some of New Hampshire's wins, um, there's not a ton. I mean, they lost to Ivy League Dartmouth earlier in the season. They lost to Villanova in a not a close game. Lost to Rhode Island in a closer but still a loss. And then they sort of rattled off some wins of some teams, including Monmouth. Like the Monmouth win looks really nice. It's 34-13 just a few weeks ago, and Monmouth that dropped them in the rankings quite a bit. But Monmouth had a lot of quality wins early in the season, so they seem to put it together late. But man, if it's the good South Dakota State and the team that we think, do we think that they can overcome a UNH team that has maybe surged a bit of late? I don't think so. 10.5's a lot. I'm taking UNH. Let's keep going. I need to jump back here to Southland and talk a little bit about Lamar at Abilene Christian, because Abilene Christian's an interesting team this year because of kind of the way the Southland went. They beat Tarleton State, right? Tarleton State. I watched that final game of the season and they got lucky. Who'd they play that final game? But they went for 2 in overtime, and they ended up not getting it. And so Tarleton State wins, right? But Tarleton State did also have a couple of FBS wins earlier in the year, and so they get valued. But ACU beats them and is the Southland champ. But Lamar has been plucky. They've been better. They've been a lot better of late. They haven't been a doormat anymore. But ACU minus 12.5, the best team in the Southland. What do you think, Parlay?
Yeah, sometimes just similar to UNH, feel like they're kind of digging too deep for some of these conferences to put 3 teams in. They lost to McNeese in their last game at home.
That's a bad loss. Yeah.
It's a very bad loss. I'm kind of surprised they made the playoffs, but again, who else do you put in? Another Valley team, NAU. I mean, I honestly, I'd rather see Lamar in there than the NAUs or the SIUs. Although SIU, I guess, made a case for themselves in the last game they played. But yeah, again, this goes back to, I think, similarly to SDSU, getting those huge wins early in the year. They beat South Dakota in their second game, and that looks great on the resume. And they really haven't, they never got blown out. They lost Incarnate Word by 7. Stephen F. Austin Stephen F. Austin by 11.
That Incarnate Word game was a blowout. They lose 38-7 in that one to an Incarnate Word team that was overrated, and it was clear to everybody from the start. So this is ACU, or you're talking about Lamar?
Oh, I'm talking Lamar here.
Okay,
ACU, I did not know ACU. I'm looking at the Lamar schedule, but yeah, that's the thing. Either of these teams, I think what you got to do is take the points because, I think they're close enough. 2 Texas teams. ACU, I might be getting overvalued because they beat Tarleton.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm also looking at 2 losses in a row and last one to McNeese. So, gosh, this is not one I would ever bet because I don't have a damn clue. But I'm just going to take the points.
I agree, too. Lamar has been a plucky team. They've been a team that has been pesky. ACU has had some missteps, although those missteps were a while ago. Their last loss coming at Southern Utah in mid-October, and after that they rattle off a win against Tarleton State, Utah Tech, whatever, Eastern Kentucky, and then Central Arkansas. Those are okay, right? But they took care of business in all of them, and that win over Tarleton State is at home by 3. So do I believe that maybe Lamar can close that gap and keep it they may not necessarily win, but plus 12.5. Yeah, I like it. I'd probably bet it. I'd probably bet Lamar plus 12.5.
Abilene also lost to Southern Utah.
Yeah, that's their last loss, right? And that's like I mean, SUU is a weird team this year because they had moments where they looked good, then they had moments where they looked absolutely awful, and I don't know, just a really, really odd team. We should also point out that ACU beat West Georgia, who had this weird juju over a lot of teams earlier in the season and beat a lot of teams that, for some reason, they just, I don't know. Well, let's keep moving on here, man. Let's talk about UND at TTU. We talked a little bit about this earlier, about North Dakota having to take the trip to Cookeville to face TTU. TTU playing in the OVC Big South combination, and getting favored at home against the Fighting Hawks. How do you see this one, though? We have a Valley team against an OVC Big South team, and we're not quite sure what we got.
Outside of the Ivy matchups, well, especially the Youngstown Yale, because that's who the Bobcats get. This is the game I'm most looking forward to. Tennessee Tech, let's see how they react and rebound from being dropped from a 6 or a 7 seed all the way down to whatever they ended up, obviously not a bye, and having to face a pretty solid Valley team, and let's see how North Dakota responds to losing at home to South Dakota State in overtime. It's going to be a really interesting game. North Dakota usually is not as good on the road, although they were beating the Grizz at halftime. And they kind of beat themselves up in that game a little bit with the kicking game and a couple fourth down plays. But the spread's 1.5, so it's basically a coin flip. You know what? I'm going to go Tennessee Tech. I think UND's probably the better team, but I think Tennessee Tech comes out pissed off about their seating, and they're at home, and it's outdoors, right? Phil, yeah. It's outdoors, North Dakota. They prefer the dome. I'm going to ride with Tennessee Tech. And if you saw me making a face and shaking my head, I just noticed the TV times for all the games. They're not spread out at all. We got 3 at 11 a.m. Eastern. I think I'm looking at Eastern time on ESPN. And the rest at noon. So they're an hour apart. Basically, every game's going to be at the same time. It's just, I don't think they've done that in past years.
Hope you've got your multi-view going, because you're going to need it. Just looking at the weather in Cookeville on Saturday, it says it's going to be 49%. A little bit of wind. It's going to be, they're predicting 60 miles an hour. So TTU is a pass-heavy team, so that might play a factor, but they're used to playing in there, and UND plays in a dome, like you said. So maybe their quarterback is not used to wind. But I kind of like what you're saying. I like TTU to cover. It's a close line. TTU has smashed basically everybody that they played except for Kentucky, like you noted, and then this last weekend against Martin for the final game of the season. They won that one 20-17, but everything else was a wide margin, usually 20 points or at least 15 points or more in most cases, right? So they took care of business against just about everybody. You could complain that the schedule's a little bit soft with the likes of Western Illinois and Lindenwood, Charleston Southern, Davidson, Tennessee State, who's on the rebound. They're trying to figure things out. But a nice win over Chattanooga. I mean, Chattanooga obviously wasn't at the top of the SoCon this year, but a SoCon win is a SoCon win, and that's a decent one. So I think I like TTU to cover, and it's close enough that it's not like it's a wide gap. It's essentially a money line at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So Parlay, we've got a couple left in here. I wanted to know if you wanted to dive into those, or if we hit time here and wanted to wrap things up with your final thoughts.
We can move on because I don't want to. This HBCUs, it's almost, I don't know what's more offensive, me not talking about them or me talking about them without knowing anything. They pull more fans and pretty much every other team.
Yeah.
And but they're not part of the FCS playoffs. So it's just, I don't follow it as much. I mean, yeah, every once in a while they can sneak in if they've got a good team that doesn't make their Celebration Bowl. But yeah, it's just too bad. Now that the Ivies are a part of it, they're never getting rid of the Celebration Bowl. And
No, I mean, it makes too much money. Why would you play in the playoffs when you can make way more money playing in the Celebration Bowl? And by the way, so the Bayou Classic this weekend, which is one of the lines that we were going to talk about, Southern at Grambling, that's going to be at the Superdome, man. like that's a big time game, They'll
probably sell it out. So
yeah.
Southern hasn't won a game, or they won one game. And I don't know. It's 13.5. I have no idea. I guess you say Grambling's going to cover if you're going up against a team that's got one win. And then FAMU at Mississippi Valley State. Where's that game at?
Oh, that game is in. I had to look up how to say it. It's at Mississippi Valley State. It's I looked it up because it was like, what? I don't want to make sure that I say this right. But FAMU should be favored in that game fairly heavily. Let's see the line that we're getting there. Yeah, minus 14.5 for FAMU in that one. I would probably take them to cover, but maybe Mississippi Valley State is.
I'd take the home team to cover.
Yeah.
Two touchdown spread. I'd take the home team. Again, I'm not betting on this. There's been a few times I've bet on the Celebration Bowl because I knew Jackson State and Deion Sanders were overrated. But other than that, I don't bet those games because I don't know enough about them. But someday I do want to go to, the Celebration Bowl or some of their stadiums. I know it's a good time.
Yeah. Itabena, Mississippi.
Itabena. Yeah.
Yep. All right, Parlay. So final thoughts. I mean, we have a Chiron in here about natty plans. You got your natty plans all sorted?
Yeah, I got tickets to the game. I got the hotel downtown Nashville. I got the flight.
Where are you staying at in Nashville?
The Hilton downtown.
Okay.
So not far from Broadway. I don't know why I'm giving that information out to all y'all. But no.
You guys just know that Parlay will be down on Broadway. You'll find him. Down there.
Yeah, you'll find me. So real quick, though, we've made our picks, but I haven't given my bet out. So
okay, let's talk about it.
I got 3 of them. All right. First of all, I've got South Dakota to cover the 18.5. I just think it's below. It should be 21, 20.5 roughly. There's a little bit of value there. So put a unit on South Dakota. The other 2 are the Ivy overs. Okay, keep an eye on the weather. Remember, snow and cold these days doesn't really affect points, but wind does. The Harvard Nova game, I think both teams get to 30. It's 54.5. I like that over quite a bit. And Yale, Youngstown, you got 2 offenses who do very well against 2 defenses who don't. So it's 59.5, but I think there's 60 plus points in that game. So those are my 3 bets. Yale, Youngstown over 59.5. Harvard, Nova over 54.5, and South Dakota minus 18.5. Youngstown minus 3.5. When I look at the spreads I picked, I probably have to bet that one too, but that's not an official parlay pick.
Okay. Yeah, and talking about the weather for some of these games, just looking through some of these rankings, and Youngstown State 20th in the FCS in their passing yards. I think we talked about Harvard earlier. Did I see them? Yeah, they're 5th, right? And so if there's a bit of wind in that game, it can definitely make a difference. Yale and Youngstown State also run the ball fairly well, but yeah, just weather is a key one, I think, when you're deciding on your bets, because if the strength is affected by the weather, that plays a role. And so, but I like what you're saying with the putting the unit on USD, definitely would do that. And then the over for Nova Harvard. Yeah, I say do it. All right, Parlay. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, we're going to bring this to you every week. We might put a poll out on Twitter. I kind of like this Tuesday night, and if we got enough, if we get lines every Tuesday, I say why not? We'll discuss this. We might put a poll out there. It's either going to be Tuesday or Thursday nights before every round of the playoffs. We're going to be coming at you with hot takes and great picks.
Yeah. So if you guys have ideas or you have something you want to talk about particularly, send us a note. Otherwise, we'll see you in the comments. Appreciate you, Montana Parlay, for doing this. I'm Colby Peterson. Good to hang with you guys, and we will see you next week.